So when we're trying to move our maps online and when we're trying to add um, interactive elements to our web maps, our map readers actually have been changed from readers to users, which means they should have the ability to interact with the map. And because of that, we need to design GUIs, which means graphical user interfaces. They need to be well designed so the human computer interaction can be very smooth and effective. So there are four basic fundamental elements for GUIs. They are called WIMP. And each character here is representing a specific element. Actually, we are using every day. Uh, W is for Windows. It's not for that operation system. It means a specific window you use to browse data, to browse your files. Icons, right? And the menus and the pointers or mouse, right? So these four basic elements, they are called WIMP. And today they are very common, but they were not common before Windows and Mac OS were invented. Before that, before that, people use something called command lines, command lines to input commands and get response from computers. But today we can use WIMP to interact with our PCs so we can tell them what to do and they can use windows and menus to give us feedback, to give us response. Okay, and today beyond WIMP, we're in an era of touch screen, which means today when we're using tablets, we're using smartphones, we are more likely to tap, to touch and drag, or zoom in, zoom out. We use these gestures to interact with our devices. So WIMP, they are fundamentals. But today, when you are trying to be a real developer for web maps, or you're working for a web map producing company, you also need to know how to program, how to code, how to design touch screen friendly GUIs. Okay, but that's beyond the content of this course. That's all I want you to know about human map interactivity. Okay, all those elements. And still, there are map elements in our web maps. Traditional map elements and their design are still crucial. Okay, it doesn't mean that um, they are not crucial when you are moving maps online. They're still useful, okay? So with web maps, we can build map elements into our GUIs. So our map users can use these elements to interact with our maps. And there are three fundamentals to remember when designing interactive map elements, okay? The first one is find and design map elements that facilitate your communication goals rather than simply using default elements, which means that you need to be creative and you need to be selective because some elements they are still important in web mapping or in a specific web map you're trying to design, but others may not be necessary. I will give you some examples later. So you have to be sure that the elements you are adding to your web maps, they are necessary, okay? And you have to decide if they need to be there, okay? And also you still need to respect the established rules of map elements in the Vero hierarchy system, which means that you still have to emphasize what is important, what is the main body of your web maps, okay? It, it I mean, you are adding more interactive elements into your web maps, but they should not be the main character. they are still serving as tools, okay? So variable hierarchy system should still be there, okay? You still need to consider which part of the map is the most important, and they should be put on the top of this hierarchy system. And yeah, let's talk about all those map elements one by one in the context of web mapping. Okay, for title, still very common, but sometimes we can simply use captions to replace titles. So titles, they are usually several words, right? And the captions sometimes could be a very short phrase or even a short sentence. Okay, so sometimes titles, sometimes captions, sometimes you can just ignore them. Don't use them. Okay. For example, when you are checking your Google Map or checking your Apple Map, there is no titles, right? In that case, you don't have to provide titles. So titles and captions in web maps, they are not musts. So which means that you have to decide if a title is necessary or if a caption is necessary. If not, simply just ignore them. Scale bar. Scale bar can be tricky here because when you're looking at a web map, I mean, most web maps, they can be zoomed in or zoomed out, which means the scale changes according to your user's actions. If you zoom in, the scale will change. If you zoom out, it's the same thing, right? So it's very important to design your scale bars. Ideally, you should just add a dynamic scale bar into your web map, which means that when your user zoom in or zoom out, the scale bar should change accordingly. But sometimes it's not necessary to use dynamic scale bar because for some maps, there is no more details, even you zoom in, okay? In that case, you don't have to add a dynamic scale bar into your map because no matter zoom in or zoom out, I mean, no more information, no new maps, then the scale bar can stay the same, And pen user interfaces and arrow keys, they are new. They do not, they are exclusive to web maps. They do not exist in a static map. And the functions are straightforward, right? If you want to use your mouse to browse different parts of your map, today we are used to, we're familiar with clicking and dragging, right? But before that, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, when clicking and dragging was not a function, we use something called what? Arrow keys to browse a pretty big map. And there could be pen or zoom bar to zoom in and zoom out, right? So yeah, again, they are not necessary today. Let's just say that because we cannot see them very often today, right? Zoom bar and arrow keys. So today, it's more like this, right? When we're looking at a very mature web application like Google Map, you can simply use your mouse or your finger to click, drag, to zoom in, zoom out, right? So today, that's it. Again, it actually requires more. If you're trying to make a map more, say, fancy, more modern, like today's web map, you have to add these functions into your map, right? To enable your readers to click and drag or touch and drag, okay? And yeah, map rotation also matters, right? Today, a lot of web maps, they are based on mobile devices, which means that people can just rotate map freely. And when people are rotating map, you need to make sure that everything in this map changes accordingly, especially the text, right? So when you rotate the map, the text for buildings, for different locations, roads, they should rotate accordingly, okay? And another element that doesn't exist in traditional mapping is called callout labels. What does it mean? It means this. For example, this is a map of OSU campus, right? There is this callout window for Starbucks. I clicked on the map. So Starbucks is just a label on the map. But if you add callout labels to the Starbucks store, when you click on that store, more information will be provided like this, right? So usually that's good enough. But for Google Maps, there is a second level callout menu or callout label. If you click this first level label, and more information can be shown on this second level label. Okay, again, this is for web maps, right? In a traditional map, there is no something called callout labels. But if you want, if you have enough resources, if you have enough knowledge for programming, this might be a good idea to show more information on your web maps. Okay, that's called callout labels. And locator maps, this is common. This is not exclusive to web maps, which means you can just add a small map at a corner or in a corner of your map to show the surrounding area, of your area of interest, or a smaller part of your area of interest, just like this, right? So of course, in this visualization, the photo for Derby Hall is the main character, and other photos surrounding for the surrounding areas of Derby Hall. And here we have an indicator map to show you the relative position of Derby Hall in relative position of Derby Hall compared to other landmarks, surrounding landmarks, right? So locator maps. And legends. Legends, again, legends used in web maps could be very similar to those used in traditional maps. For example, here is a map. It's not a map, say it's a visualization for the spatial distribution of CO2 around the Earth. Here is the legend. It's a color ramp. It's just a traditional map legend you use every day in a traditional map, right? But your legends can be interactive. For example, in this map, I have provided a link for this website. If you go to that website, you'll find out that when you change the color scheme of the map, the legend will also change accordingly. So this is a special type of legend. It's called dynamic legend, which means your readers, your map users, they have options. Okay, they will feel in control, and feeling in control is a very important part of interaction. Okay, so it's interactive legends can be a great place for symbol and thematic modification, which means you can make your whole map interactive. When you change the color scheme or your mapping scheme for the main map, your legends will change accordingly. Okay, and also if you are making an animated map, okay, remember to include temporal legends when your map is animated using time. So what is temporal legend? You can find more details in former lectures about animation. Okay, and yes, that's for the second part of this lecture. Thank you.